Hi guys, this one is 1.08 practice number 4. It's about Carolina running at different speeds. So I already started this so you don't have to watch me type everything. So let's go through it. So Carolina runs for 6.00 minutes at speed V1. So here we go. Change in T1 is 6.00 minutes. And then she runs twice as fast for the rest of her run. So the second segment, the speed for the second segment we would call V2. Okay, and we know that V2 is twice as fast as V1. So we write V2 equals 2V1. That's really important. If you didn't put that in your guide, then you're missing this. This right here is like super duper key to this problem. We're going to highlight it so much. The entire run takes 8 minutes, 8.00 minutes. So change in T total is 8.00 minutes. And from there, I figured out change in T2 was the total time minus the time at the first segment. So that was 2.00 meters. What was her speed in meters per second for the first interval? So what was V1 if she ran for a total of 3.60 kilometers? V1 in meters per second. There we go. Okay. So that's where I got the G's and the U's from. Here's my X total, 3.60 kilometers. The I wrote down some basic stuff. I'm really actually going to mostly use change in X equals V times change in T. And you have to write down, this is where your conversion factors go. So I knew what conversion factors to put down because I knew that I needed meters and seconds, but I had kilometers and minutes. So I wrote down seconds to minutes, 60 seconds equals 1 minute. Then I wrote down meters to kilometers. Both of these you guys need to have memorized. So you need to know both of these for the test and moving forward. Okay, so the first thing I did, I started D here. The first thing I did is I immediately converted the time of T1 to seconds. So I did 6.00 minutes over 1. That's what we start with. Times 60 seconds over 1 minute, because then these minutes cancel out. Minute on top, minute on the bottom. So you end up with 6 times 60. The 6 has 3 sig figs, so I keep 3 sig figs in my answer. 6 times 60. 6 times 60 is 360. To make that into 3 sig figs, we put a period at the end of it. So 360 dot seconds is change in T1. All right, to do change in T2, we just got to change the numbers. So change in T2 is 2 minutes. So I'm going to start with 2. I'll do 2.00 times 60. 2 times 60 is 120. And that is going to be change in T2. So we're all set with that. So you might be like, well, miss, I already know change in T total now is 480 seconds. I know the total distance, and I can just divide those two. But that would solve for V average, and we don't need to solve for V average. If you did solve for V average, that's still helpful. But really, mostly you can use that in your E explanation. The last thing I'm going to do is convert change in X total. So 3.60 kilometers. So I didn't do that yet, but we're going to do it. So 3.60 km, and then the conversion factor, is going to be 1,000 meters over 1 kilometer. That's only 100 over, 1 km. So the kms and the kms cancel out. So we do 3.60 times 1,000. So here's the issue here. 3.60 times 1,000 is 3,600 meters. So our change in X total is 3,600 meters. However, we need to have 3 sig figs. So I could write this as 3.60 times 10 to the third. But for right now, I'm just going to remind myself that there's supposed to be 3 sig figs in 3,600 for now. And this is not something you can do on the test, but in the middle of a problem like this, you can, because it's not our final answer. All right, so here's what I'm going to do, and this is a little weird for you guys maybe, but we've done stuff like this in class. So what I'm going to do with this, because I don't know what X1 is, I don't know what X2 is, but what I do know is that change in X1, Okay, so change in x1, I should have had this written out for you guys, sorry, plus change in x2, it's going to equal change in x total. And this is basically where I'm going to solve this problem from. So we know from up above that change in x equals v times change in t. So I'm going to come down here, and instead of change in x1, I'm going to write v1 change in t1. Okay, then I'm going to add, instead of x2, I'm going to put v2 change in t2. All right, and instead of change in x total, I'm going to put 3,600 meters because that's how many meters it is. Okay, so 3,600. All right, then I'm going to keep plugging in V1. We don't know what V1 is. That's actually what we're solving for. So it makes sense we just keep it in there as V1 because we don't know the number for it. But change in T1 we do know. It's 360 dot. So 360 dot. Okay, plus we don't know what V2 is, but we do have this. We're coming back to it now. Very, very important fact. V2 equals 2V1. So I'm going to write V2 as 2V1. That's because we already have V1 in the equation. So it's best to only have one variable in the equation so you can solve it. And then we know that T2 from up here is 120 dot seconds. Okay, equals 3,600. Okay, so down here I'm going to write this as 360 V1. And then here I'm going to do 2 times 120 to get 240 dot V1. And I'm going to say that's equal to 3,600. Okay, I'm going to combine like terms. So I'm going to get 360 dot plus 240 dot. So it's going to end in a dot. There's no decimal places on either one of those. So 360 divided by 240 or plus 240 is 600. So 600 dot V1 is equal to 3,600. All right, so remember up above when we wrote 3 sig figs and 3,600? So the last thing we're going to do is divide by 600. This has 3 sig figs in it. This 600 dot has 3 sig figs in it. So our answer should have 3 sig figs. All right, whoops. V1 equals 3,600 divided by 600. 3,600 divided by 600. Hopefully you guys don't need that, but that's fine. It's 6, and to make 6 into 3 sig figs, 6.00 meters per second. And we are done with that. All right, now we have to write an E. I'm just going to put that over here. Does this make sense? So if you had done V average, we could say V average is, and we can just quickly, if you look up here, we know it's 3,600, the total, which is the total distance divided by the total time. We can add the total time real quick, 480, right? So V average equals 3,600 divided by 480, which some of you guys might already have done. 3,600 divided by 480 is 7.5 meters per second. Okay, so that means that V1, which is the slower time, should be slower than average. V2, which is the higher than average speed, should be higher than average. And so we also know that V2 is 12.00 meters per second because, again, V2 is 2 times V1. Okay, so if V average is 7.5, V1 is 6, V2 is 12. This makes sense. Whoops. Because, oh my God, V1 should be slower than the average speed of 7.5 meters per second. Okay, it shouldn't be that much slower. Also, 6.00 meters per second is a reasonable 6.00 meters per second is a reasonable running speed. Some of you guys on your answers wrote down that, I'm just going to move this down. Some of you guys in your answers wrote something like 0.45, which isn't in meters per second, and is really slow. That's 45 centimeters. That's not even a whole meter. Okay, and the average human walking speed is 1 to 2 meters per second. So somewhere in your notes or somewhere in your brain, really, put that fact in there because that's going to help you a lot with whether or not your